right now, it's time for the Way Black History Fact. And today's Way Black History Fact is sponsored by Major Threads. For innovative, fashionable sportswear, check majorthreads.com. And today, it's going to be a little different. This is a little bit of ebony excellence and Way Black History Fact, but it comes from
Baba.
And Baba, yeah. Comes from ABC News. The U.S. Navy has exonerated 256 sailors who were unjustly court-martialed in 1944 following the Port Chicago explosion in California that killed 320 people. The sailors had been punished for refusing to go back to work in what they considered to be an unsafe environment. Their prosecution took place at a time when the U.S. military was still segregated and reflected the unfair treatment of black sailors experienced. The 256 sailors were exonerated by Navy Secretary Carlos del Toro on the 80th anniversary of the accidental deadly World War II era blast, which also injured 400 other people. The explosion at an ammunition loading area also damaged 2 ships and a train and caused damage to the nearby town of Port Chicago, located east of Oakland, California. Del Toro's exoneration carries more weight than a pardon, which acknowledges guilt. Instead, the exoneration will vacate all of the court martials of the 256 sailors that they had to go through. Quote, "Today, the Department of Defense has moved to rectify an old injustice and face up to a painful episode in our own history," unquote, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said in a statement. The sailors, quote, "refused to keep loading munitions in the same unsafe and inhumane conditions that contributed to the catastrophe," unquote. He said, adding that decades later, the military recognizes the sailors were right and the segregated Navy that unnecessarily risked their lives was wrong. All right. What happened after that deadly explosion reflected the double standards experienced by white and black personnel in the segregated military at the time. White supervising officers at Port Chicago were given hardship leave, while the surviving black sailors they commanded in the segregated units that loaded the ammunition were ordered back to work at the port, which had been functioning around the clock to get ammunition to U.S. troops on the front lines. Expressing safety concerns about their workplace in the wake of the deadly blast, 258 black sailors refused to return to work handling dangerous ammunitions. After threats of disciplinary action, 208 of the sailors returned to work, but they still received summary court-martials for disobeying orders and received a bad conduct discharge and forfeiture of 3 months' pay. 50 sailors who refused to return to work were convicted and charged with mutiny. They have become known as the Port Chicago 50. In a mass court-martial, these sailors were sentenced to dishonorable discharge, 15 years confinement at hard labor, a reduction in rank, and a total forfeiture of their pay. Later reviews of the general court-martial resulted in a suspension of the discharges and reduced the period of confinement from 15 years to 17 to 29 months. Two sailors were later cleared. By January 1946, nearly all the sailors had been released and were given the opportunity to finish their military service contracts. Del Toro's decision to exonerate the 256 sailors follows a legal review by the Navy's General Counsel that found significant legal errors during the court-martial, including trying all of them together despite conflicting interests, as well as the denial of what the Navy called meaningful right to counsel. All the sailors who were convicted following the blast are now deceased, and the Navy is asking any possible descendants to reach out to the branch for future notifications about the incident. And yes, they're all deceased, and it's a way Black history fact. That's the name of the segment, but still, right is right, and setting the record straight is not nothing. And also, we didn't know about this story, and so we thought it was important to share it with you. This is modern news that is based on an old story, so we thought you guys would enjoy that.